Have you ever seen a dead body walking before?
No, I haven't. Have you?
No.
Okay. This is Mohammed.
This is Adi.
This is the Neurosurgeons channel.
And this is the only place where you find two neurosurgeons talking to you about everything about the brain and spine.
So, story time with the neurosurgeons. Things are going to get a bit weird. So my story, case 1, 65-year-old teacher, previously well, started to develop some problems with his personality and his behaviour, and it seems that this was brought on, like a lot of mental health problems, by psychosocial stresses, so life stress. He first was quite sad in the morning, then he stopped talking to people, then he stopped enjoying things that he liked to enjoy, then he got more depressed, lost his appetite, and then developed a feeling of sin and guilt, so it starts to get more and more extreme. He then developed delusions of catastrophe, nihilism, poverty and persecution. And then the nihilistic delusions involved a description of everything coming to an end. He'd say his organs weren't working, his brain wasn't working, and the reason he ended up in hospital is that he thought he was no longer alive. He thought he was going to spread a virus, a lot like The Walking Dead. Sorry if I spoiled anything for people who haven't watched it yet. Send a virus to his local village, and so he didn't want to spread it, so he attempted suicide. He was rescued, but then he refused to eat. He just refused to eat anything because he thought he wasn't alive. The only treatment that the doctors could give him was electroconvulsive therapy. You've probably seen this on TV and things. I've seen it in real life. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it before.
I have seen it actually a few times. Where they give electrical currents through someone's brain, essentially to induce a seizure, and for some reason, no one knows why, it helps with a lot of major depressive problems. So he had electroconvulsive therapy. How many sessions did he have? Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, 3 times a week. He had 9 sessions. He was started on antipsychotic medicines, and then his symptoms completely resolved over a period of 7 weeks, which is pretty quick, isn't it, actually? And all his assessments were normal when he went home, and then he stayed okay, actually. So despite...
Okay, I'll get you the second story, and it's about a patient who's 62-year-old, and he works as a homemaker, and he had a background of bipolar affective disorder for 35 years. So probably I can see that it's common that both patients had some sort of mental problems or psychiatric problems early on anyway. Then he presented with a relapse of his symptoms that started about 7-8 months ago, and basically had progressive symptoms of depression and anxiety, decreased socialization, loss of appetite, and subsequently he was losing weight. He decreased interest in household, poor self-care, ideas of worthlessness and pessimistic views of the future. And later on he developed nihilistic delusions where he negated the existence of her body parts and the existence of her family members. So yeah, again, it's pretty much similar to the first patient that we were talking about. I mean, in neurosurgery we see some patients where they have brain tumors, or when we do an operation and that causes damage to some parts of the brain. They have some movements in parts of the body, but they can't feel it or they can't control it. It's something like that, but it's different to some extent. But those patients, they deny the existence of that body part, although it's completely functioning and normal, isn't it?
Yeah, neglect is the term.
Yeah.
So similar, I guess, pretty gradual, and then like an extreme case, and then they had to give something rare, the electroconvulsive therapy, but seems to fix them in the end.
So the 2 cases that we were talking about represent something that's called walking dead or Cotard syndrome. And just to explain that in simple terms, it's basically patients will feel that they do not exist, or they feel that missing some parts of their body, although it's normal and functioning, but they feel that it's non-existent. There was an interesting case as well that, the family called the hospital 911 and said, the patient was admitted to hospital because she felt that she's dead, and she smelled like a rotten fish, and she wanted to be with the dead people. So
crazy.
Yeah, it's quite a rare disease. Probably there are about 200 reported cases in the whole world. but it's there.
It's mega rare then, isn't it? Just thankfully, very, very rare.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch The Walking Dead?
I didn't know.
I did, again. I watched it on TV. Not all of it. But, so why does it happen? The answer is we're not entirely sure. If you do a scan of someone's brain who is experiencing this syndrome, then it will look normal. An MRI scan will show that the structure of the brain's okay. But then there's thoughts that maybe that it's not the brain itself, but the connections within it. So there's a saying in this paper, the frontotemporal circuitry is pathophysiological. Translated, that means that the entirety of the brain and its circuitry is not working properly, and maybe it's the integration of information, like your frontal part of your brain telling you who you are and your personality, and then another part, parietal, telling you where you are in space. Maybe they're not talking anymore for whatever reason, which we'll talk about, and then you stop believing that you exist anymore. The treatments that they talk about, again, common stuff for a lot of people with mental health, antipsychotics, antidepressants. Often medicines take a long time to work, but then in these scenarios they give electroconvulsive therapy, which we said, electricity through the brain to reset it. Again, no one really knows why it works, or at least I don't know why it works.
Yeah, probably it works through through the connections of the brain somehow, trying to restart it.
Hey, like the TV's not working, so you turn it on and off.
Yeah. Probably something like that. But anyway, yeah, it's very interesting. There are a lot of interesting syndromes or disease that happens in the brain. Even with advances in technology and medicine up to now and research, I don't think we understand the brain fully. There are a lot of amazing things that we explore and see every day that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, 100%. We don't understand a lot of the connections. Parts of the brain's function still we don't understand.
Yeah,
I think this shows the fact that that's still the case very much.
So there are a lot of interesting syndromes that can happen in the brain. Walking Dead or Cottage syndrome is one of them. If you are interested in that stuff, just go and read about it, and Walking Dead is something real.
Yeah.